I'd like to welcome everyone here to the GME Summit West. I'm Dr. Tom Told, Dean at Rocky Vista University, and our board, leadership, faculty, and students are certainly honored to have been a sponsor of this, this summit, and actually to help facilitate it. Basically, by way of background, I came to Rocky Vista after 35 years as a rural family physician. And as such, actually delivering care out where everybody talks about rural and underserved, I became very convinced that really the secret to our access problems was to create not just primary care physicians, but primary care physicians that practice to the fullest extent of their scope in order for us to solve that. So I came to Rocky Vista to do that, to inspire students and residents to at least go back into the rural areas to practice. But also, even in rural areas today, for the last few years actually, and actually since World War II, we've debated which is the best route for our country to go, whether it be specialist or generalist. Should we really create people who drill down on the quantum physics of all of our medical problems, or do we really need more generalists, who can really do population health, preventive medicine? So the question I think we wrestle with at all levels of government, whether it be as a medical student deciding what they're going to do, or a health policymaker in Congress, which should America train more of? And I've sort of come to the conclusion that we need to train both, but at different times we need different types of people. And I would say, as we sit now, the evidence seems to set, in my mind, a little bit more to the generalists. And that was brought home. It was just before I assumed the dean's chair, I had to address a group of Eastern medical educators who came out to study how we delivered health care in the rural West. And I came across this article which really drove home to me that point. It was titled "First Teach No Harm," and it was written by Philip Longman. It was in one of those Washington Beltway journals that I think everybody that you can sometimes see a talking head on television do. But I thought he made a good point, and that was that medical schools share some of the responsibility for some of our healthcare problems. And that certainly drove that home to me. Basically what Mr. Longman said was the U.S. spends $13 billion a year subsidizing graduate medical education. Yes, almost all of this money winds up producing the wrong kind of doctors in the wrong places in and with America's most elite teaching hospitals being some of the worst offenders. Ivory towers seem to be turning their backs on primary care. I can certainly say the Western medical schools probably don't share that. This was brought home a couple of weeks ago when Columbia Presbyterian Hospital closed their family medicine residency program, with the dean saying that he thought that it was out of date and not needed. The Institute of Medicine certainly didn't agree with that, nor did I. And on July 29th of last year, they issued a report which said that funding of medical education should be changed to reward the production of more generalist physicians, and presently hospitals that control those funds sponsor the more lucrative specialties and that benefit their financial plans. Certainly the world doesn't believe that. Generalization, not specialization, is the key to access, and access to health care drives the health care outcomes. When we look at the countries around the world, America stands at the very last because we have chosen the path of subspecialization. In fact, 1 out of every 7 Americans would like to have a family doctor as their primary care doctor, but can't find one. Actually, when we look at the latest, and 2011 was the latest national health scorecard I could find from the Commonwealth Foundation, but you've seen from 2006 here, from 2006 down to 2011, and you've got it here this way, that we have continued to drop in healthy lives, certainly in access, and our overall score goes down. We spend probably 5 to 10 times more than some of the countries ahead of us, and yet we tend to drop in our healthcare outcomes. We perhaps have increased the efficiency and perhaps some of the equity, but that's just about as far as we go. Actually, healthcare access is the key to quality outcomes, and when we use those 37 indicators that we saw in there, summarized in 6 criteria, we still come in at the very bottom. What does that equate to? That means that a child born in America at the same time as a child born in Canada will live 5 years less than our Canadian neighbors. But to me, as an elderly healthcare consumer, what that means to me is that if I have a primary care physician as my physician, and I have to tell you, I go back to the rural areas to get my primary care because it's frustrating in the city. But this drives it home to me. I will pay 33% less for the care that I get, but more important, as an elderly person, I have a 19% less chance of taking that terminal ride to the cemetery prematurely. The GME Initiative was a grassroots organization that we started in 2011 based on what I had talked about, the disparity between healthcare payments that forced a lot of very valuable primary care residencies to close because they were not profitable to the hospital, while the hospital could go ahead and add more lucrative specialties that would benefit their bottom line. Family medicine educators from the West and the Midwest gathered together to see what we could do. And at that time, we felt that we would petition Congress, and we actually influenced 7 U.S. senators to write the letter to the IOM that sponsored the report I just alluded to. Kent Voorhees also published an article on this subject in the Journal of Family Medicine that year. Our first summit was held in Washington, D.C. Last June 2014, and I think was a pretty good success. We had a lot of the legislators there, but we have to continue to do more. From that, we realized that we had to meet monthly, and we do. Many in this room gather together monthly on calls, and we think that it's been a very, very fruitful endeavor. It helped us identify the fact that we needed to have this summit today because more discussion, more collaboration, more networking needs to go on. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. We hope in the next 2 days that you can help us straighten out some of the knots and kinks that are in our healthcare system. Maybe with a little bit of luck, we might blow through that log jam that Ted Epperly wrote about in his article that tends to block the training of new physicians, and hopefully identify some of the bottlenecks, because what we really want to come out of this are strategies for reforming GME funding to produce the physician workforce which America really needs. So with that, thank you all for coming, and I'll turn the program over to Dan here.